Namaskar and welcome to Midday Prime. In the next 1 hour, we'll get you the quick updates on the developing stories of the day. The government formation in Bihar. Remember, Nitish Kumar will be sworn in as the Chief Minister of Bihar for the 7th time, and this is for the 4th consecutive term for him. All that and much more, the top stories, international stories, sports and business. I'm Sakal Bhatt, but first, the big news on Midday Prime. Prime Minister Modi remembers Jain monk Acharya Shri Vijay Vallabh Sureshwarji Maharaj on his 151st birth anniversary celebrations, unveils Statue of Peace in Rajasthan's Pali district via video conferencing, requests saints to give message of local for vocal for making Atmanirbhar Bharat. Nitish Kumar to be sworn in as the Chief Minister of Bihar today for the 7th time. BJP elects Tarkishore Prasad as the leader of the legislature party and Renu Devi as the deputy leader. BJP hits out at the Gupkar alliance in Jammu and Kashmir, says alliance wants exactly what Pakistan and anti-India countries want, questions Congress if they stand by the comments made by leaders of Gupkar alliance. India continues to fight COVID-19 pandemic. India continues to have one of the lowest cases per million population globally. Meanwhile, Health Minister Harshvardhan to chair a meeting of WHO Executive Board today. In other big news of the day, religious worship places across Maharashtra set to reopen from today. BJP celebrating the reopening of the temples in the state. The temple authorities to follow social distancing norms along with SOP issued by the government. National Press Day is observed today. Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar says free press is pillar of India's democracy. And let's begin Midday Prime with the big news of this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today unveiled the Statue of Peace to mark the 151st anniversary of Jain Acharya Shri Vijay Vallabh Sureshwarji Maharaj via video conferencing. While unveiling the statue, Prime Minister urged Saint community to spread the message of local for vocal.
मैं आचार्यों से, संतों से, भगवंतों से, ऋषियों से, कथाकारों से एक आग्रह करना चाहता हूं। जिस प्रकार से आजादी के आंदोलन की पीठिका भक्ति आंदोलन से शुरू हुई, भक्ति आंदोलन ने ताकत दी, वैसे ही आत्मनिर्भर भारत की पीठिका तैयार करने का काम भी हमारे संतों, महंतों, आचार्यों का है। आप जहां भी जाएं, जहां भी बोले, अपने शिष्य हो या संत जन हो, आपके मुंह से लगातार ये संदेश देश के हर व्यक्ति तक पहुंचते रहना चाहिए और वो संदेश है वोकल फॉर लोकल.
And drawing a parallel between Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and Jain Acharya Shri Vijay Vallabh Sureshwar, Prime Minister Modi said that both work to strengthen India's unity.
गुजरात की धरती ने हमें दो वल्लभ दिए. राजनीतिक क्षेत्र में सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल और आध्यात्मिक क्षेत्र में जैनाचार्य विजय वल्लभ सुरीश्वर जी महाराज. वैसे मैं दोनों ही महापुरुषों में एक समानता और देखता हूं. दोनों ने ही भारत की एकता और भाईचारे के लिए अपना जीवन समर्पित कर दिया.
Prime Minister further said India has always spread the message of peace and tranquility to the world.
भारत ने हमेशा पूरे विश्व को, मानवता को शांति, अहिंसा और बंधुत्व का मार्ग दिखाया है. ये वो संदेश हैं जिनकी प्रेरणा विश्व को भारत से मिलती है। इसी मार्गदर्शन के लिए दुनिया आज एक बार फिर भारत की ओर देख रही है। मुझे विश्वास है कि ये स्टैच्यू ऑफ पीस विश्व में शांति, अहिंसा और सेवा का एक प्रेरणा स्रोत बनेगी।
Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad is briefing the press. Let's quickly take you live there.
लेकिन सबसे बड़ी बात है, ये जो गुपकार डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ पीपल अलायंस है, जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल के इलेक्शन के लिए साथ चल रहे हैं, 10 पार्टियां हैं, जिसमें प्रमुख रूप से नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस है और पीडीपी है। अब कांग्रेस भी उसमें आ रही है। इनका डिक्लेयर्ड एजेंडा है कि आर्टिकल 370 को हटाया जाना, रद्द होना चाहिए और आर्टिकल 370 को रेस्टोर करना चाहिए। और कुछ तो इस सीमा तक चले गए कि आर्टिकल 370 को रेस्टोर करने के लिए हमें चीन का भी हेल्प लेना पड़े तो हम लेंगे। फारूक अब्दुल्ला, इसलिए मैं स्टेटमेंट लेकर के बैठा हूं। मिस्टर फारूक अब्दुल्ला हैज नो कंपंक्शन इन सीकिंग द सपोर्ट ऑफ चाइना फॉर रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 370। और महबूबा मुफ्ती जी का स्टेटमेंट है, वॉन्ट होस्ट फर्स्ट ट्राइकलर अनलेस JNK फ्लैग इज रिस्टोर्ड। ये महबूबा जी का स्टेटमेंट है। होप आर्टिकल 370 restored in Valley with China's help, Farooq Abdullah. और won't hoist tricolor until JNK flag is allowed. तो तिरंगा नहीं जब तक जम्मू कश्मीर का झंडा नहीं। और धारा 370 को पुनः स्थापित करने के लिए हम चीन का भी सहयोग लेंगे। ये है इन दोनों के पब्लिक स्टैंड। इस पर मैं कुछ टिप्पणी करूं उसके पहले मुझे आज देश को दोबारा रिमाइंड करने की जरूरत है कि आर्टिकल 370 के हटने से क्या क्या हुआ। इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द कंट्री टू रिकॉल अगेन एज टू व्हाट हैपेंड बिकॉज ऑफ एनलमेंट ऑफ आर्टिकल 370। और देखिए, ये पूरा ऑफिशियल गजट मेरे पास है जो आर्टिकल 370 को हटाने का जो पास हुआ था बिल। और आज मैं देश को स्मरण करना चाहता हूं कि इसमें एक टेबल 1 था, 5th शेड्यूल, और उसमें क्या लिखा हुआ था? सेंट्रल लॉज made applicable to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and UT of Ladakh। जो सेंट्रल लॉ को हमने अप्लाई किया था, ये मैं आपसे पढ़ना चाहता हूं। बेनामी ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोहिबिशन एक्ट, जो लोग करप्शन करके अपनी जमीन दूसरे के नाम पर रखते हैं। डाउरी प्रोहिबिशन एक्ट, दहेज लेने को मना करने का कानून। और तीसरा देखिए, Employment of manual scavengers and construction of dry latrine prohibition act, जो शौच को माथे पर लेकर चलते हैं उसको भारत में बैन किया गया। यह कानून भी नहीं लागू था जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, और वहां पर हमारे सफाई मजदूर को यह मजबूरी में करना पड़ता था। इसको बैन किया था। अब आप देखिए, जुवेनाइल जस्टिस केयर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट, बच्चों के लिए। मुस्लिम वुमेन प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ राइट्स ऑन डाइवोर्स एक्ट 1986, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ करप्शन एक्ट 1988, द प्राइस चीट एंड मनी सर्कुलेशन स्कीम बैनिंग एक्ट, पोंजी स्कीम, उसको भी बैन किया था। प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ चाइल्ड मैरिज एक्ट Protection of Children from Sexual Offence Act 2012, Protection of Human Rights Act, शेड्यूल कास्ट शेड्यूल ट्राइब एट्रॉसिटी एक्ट 1989 वगैरह वगैरह, ये सभी कानून मानवतावादी कानून हैं। ये सभी कानून देश के पीड़ित बच्चे हों, सफाई कर्मचारी हों, हमारे दलित बंधु हों, हमारे मजदूर हों, उन सबों को बचाने के लिए। मेरा पहला सवाल यह है गुपकार डिक्लेरेशन के लोगों से कि जब आप आर्टिकल 370 को हटाने की मांग करते हैं तो आप चाहते हैं कि ये सारे कानून कश्मीर में नहीं लगे। आप चाहते हैं कि प्रिवेंशन ऑफ करप्शन एक्ट नहीं लगे ताकि कश्मीर के नेता जो भ्रष्टाचार करते हैं वो चलता रहे। आपको मालूम है ना कि कश्मीर में रिजर्वेशन का लाभ SC/ST को गंभीरता से नहीं मिलता। आपको मालूम है कि कश्मीर में मंडल कमीशन का भी बेनिफिट वहां के पिछड़ों अति पिछड़ों को नहीं मिलता। और देश को यह जानना जरूरी है कि कश्मीर में बड़ी संख्या में SC हैं, ST हैं, मल्लाह जाति के लोग हैं। मैं गया हूं कश्मीर में, मैंने काम किया है। ये जो पूरा डल्ले के आसपास बड़ी संख्या में हमारे निषाद भाइयों का वहां संख्या रहती है, जो गुज्जर हैं, जो बकरवाल हैं, इनको कोई लाभ नहीं मिलता। तो क्या इन सबों को दोबारा इस लाभ से छीनने की कवायद हो रही है क्या? The BJP would like to know that when the Gupkar Declaration Alliance talks of restoration of Article 370, they simply mean that these laws should have no application for the poor, deprived people of Jammu and Kashmir. Reply to it first. दूसरा सवाल है कि आपको मालूम है कि जम्मू कश्मीर की दो अगली हकीकत, क्रूर हकीकत, टू अगली फेसेस ऑफ J&K। भारत का बंटवारा हुआ, पाकिस्तान से रिफ्यूजी आए, जो कश्मीर में रह गए उनको वोट देने का अधिकार तो भूल जाइए, उनको मकान खरीदने, जमीन खरीदने का भी अधिकार नहीं। और जो वहां से निकल के पंजाब से आगे बढ़ गए वो भारत के प्राइम मिनिस्टर हो गए, डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह एंड I.K. गुजराल, और डिप्टी प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी हो गए L.K. आडवाणी। तो कितनी बड़ी क्रूर नियति थी कश्मीर की, that people who were forced by circumstances to stay in J&K were deprived of the basic rights available there. और आपको मालूम है कि बहुत से लोग पंजाब आ गए थे तो नेहरू जी के आग्रह पर शेख अब्दुल्ला उनको वापस ले गए थे, तुमको हम जगह देंगे वहां। मैं उन कैंपों में खुद गया हूं और वो 1950 के ही आकार में रहते थे। जब भी देने की बात होती थी लोग विरोध करते थे। और दूसरा जो सबसे बड़ा विषय है, मैंने संसद में इस पर बोलते हुए अपनी बात कही थी, आज मैं दोबारा रिपीट करूंगा। जम्मू कश्मीर की एक क्रूर हकीकत है कि अगर जम्मू कश्मीर की एक मुस्लिम बेटी भी किसी दिल्ली या पंजाब के मुसलमान नौजवान से शादी करती थी तो अपने सारे संपत्ति के अधिकार से महरूम हो जाती थी। अगर कोई जम्मू की हिंदू बेटी भी जम्मू कश्मीर के बाहर शादी करती थी तो वो भी अपने पिता के अधिकारों से बेदखल हो जाया करती थी। Therefore, an ordinary woman born either as a Muslim or as a Hindu in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, if she married a Muslim or a Hindu outside the geographical boundary of J&K, then she forfeited all her right in the property of her father. आज हमने उसको रेस्टोर कर दिया है, आपको मालूम है। आज लोगों को वहां रहने का अधिकार मिल रहा है, लोगों को बसने का अधिकार मिल रहा है, लोगों को जमीन खरीदने का अधिकार मिल रहा है। और ये गुपकार डिक्लेरेशन के लोग एक चीज बताएं कि जम्मू कश्मीर में उद्योग क्यों नहीं आया। क्योंकि उद्योग के लिए जमीन चाहिए। बाहर के लोगों को जमीन नहीं मिलती थी, और जमीन किसको मिलती थी? जिसका बहुत क्लोज रिश्ता होता था वहां की रूलिंग फैमिली से। आपको पता ही है, कई हमारे पास एग्जाम्पल हैं। तो गुपकार डिक्लेरेशन के लोगों से एक सवाल, आर्टिकल 370 को वापस करने की मांग के पीछे आप जम्मू कश्मीर को संकीर्ण कंजर्वेटिज्म में ढकेलना चाहते हैं। आप वहां की बेटियों और बहनों के साथ नाइंसाफी करना चाहते हैं। आप वहां के सफाई कर्मचारी, वहां के बच्चे जिनको सेक्सुअल ऑफेंस के खिलाफ कानून है, दहेज से पीड़ित बेटियां और बहनें, उनके अधिकार को छीनना चाहते हैं। ये देश के सामने आना बहुत जरूरी है। और ऐसे लोग जो मुख्यमंत्री रहे हैं वो कह रहे हैं कि हम इसके रेस्टोरेशन की चाइना से मदद लेंगे। ये बिल्कुल देश विरोधी गतिविधियां हैं और भाजपा की ओर से हम इसका पूरा प्रतिकार करते हैं। इसके बाद अब हमें सवाल पूछना है कांग्रेस पार्टी से। यह सवाल हम इसलिए पूछ रहे हैं, हालांकि आजकल कांग्रेस पार्टी में सभी लोग खामोश हैं, तो किससे पूछें, इसका ज्ञान हम आप लोगों से प्राप्त करेंगे। इसलिए मैं कांग्रेस पार्टी से ही पूछ रहा हूं। देखिए, उनके प्रेसिडेंट का एक स्टेटमेंट आज छपा है, देश के बड़े अखबार में है। पीसीसी प्रेसिडेंट गुलाम अहमद मीर, who was at Farouk's residence on Sunday, reiterated Congress commitment to the PAGD, that means Progressive Alliance Against for Gupkar Declaration नहीं हुआ, which many had doubted until the party participated in its first meeting of the alliance last week. Allaying fears that the alliance might disintegrate over seat sharing, Mr. Mir appealed to voters across J&K to step out and cast their votes in the maiden DDC elections. तो कांग्रेस पार्टी भी इनके साथ खड़ी हो गई है। श्रीमती सोनिया गांधी, श्री राहुल गांधी, कृपया साफ साफ बताइए, कांग्रेस पार्टी आर्टिकल 370 को दोबारा रिस्टोर करने के साथ है? क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी चाहती है कि धारा 370 को दोबारा बहाल किया जाए? मैडम सोनिया गांधी, श्री राहुल गांधी, please tell the nation clearly and categorically, does the Congress party want the restoration of Article 370 in the original form? Does it mean that the Congress party is going to support the annulment of all the pro-people and pro-poor laws being made applicable to J&K by the Parliament, which debated it thoroughly? कांग्रेस पार्टी को देश को एक जवाब देना पड़ेगा। नंबर 2, क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी फारूक अब्दुल्ला के उस स्टेटमेंट का समर्थन करती है कि धारा 370 को वापस लाने के लिए हम चाइना का समर्थन लेंगे? नंबर 3, क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी उस वक्तव्य का समर्थन करती है महबूबा जी के कि जब तक J&K का झंडा हमें फहराने का अधिकार नहीं मिलेगा तब तक हम तिरंगा नहीं फहराएंगे? ये जबरदस्त देश विरोधी बातें हैं और कांग्रेस पार्टी जवाब दे इसका। उनके प्रदेश के अध्यक्ष वहां पर बैठे हैं उस अलायंस में, तो हम चाहेंगे कांग्रेस पार्टी इसका जवाब दे। ये बहुत जरूरी है। एक बात मुझे अंतिम बात कहनी है, महबूबा जी का एक स्टेटमेंट है, उससे मुझे बहुत पीड़ा हुई है। मैं उनका स्टेटमेंट पढ़ रहा हूं। उनका स्टेटमेंट है ये 24 अक्टूबर। She added that the central government has desecrated the Constitution of India to push Bharatiya Janata Party manifesto promise of doing away with Article 370. क्या मतलब है इसका? संसद में दोनों सदनों में बहसें हुई, संविधान का संशोधन हुआ उसमें कश्मीर की पार्टियों ने भी पार्टिसिपेट किया, प्रॉपर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसेस से हुआ, और उसको कहना कि संविधान के साथ मजाक किया जा रहा है, इसका क्या मतलब है भाई? ये कौन सी सोच है ये? हम इसकी पूरी भर्त्सना करते हैं। इफ यू आर so grossly disrespecting the constitutional parliamentary process as laid down in the constitution itself by calling it desecration, then I can only tell you, your belief your belief is in India's constitution itself comes under cloud. ये बात हम जरूर कहना चाहेंगे। तो मित्रों, ये बातें देश के लिए आनी बहुत जरूरी थी, और कांग्रेस पार्टी के सामने ये सवाल उठाने बहुत जरूरी थे। कांग्रेस पार्टी इसका जवाब दे, और हम कांग्रेस पार्टी को बहुत विनम्रता से कहना चाहते हैं, हम इसको छोड़ने वाले नहीं हैं। कांग्रेस पार्टी से ये सवाल पूरे देश में पूछा जाएगा। कांग्रेस पार्टी जवाब दो, गुपकार डिक्लेरेशन का जो स्टेटेड ऑब्जेक्टिव है, आप उसके साथ हैं? आप धारा 370 को समाप्त करने के वापिस लाना चाहते हैं? क्षमा करेंगे, यू वांट आर्टिकल 370 बैक, और आप फारूक अब्दुल्ला और महबूबा जी के वक्तव्यों के साथ हैं जो कहते हैं कि हम चीन का भी समर्थन लेंगे धारा 370 को वापस लाने में, और जब तक जम्मू कश्मीर का झंडा नहीं मिलेगा हम भारत का तिरंगा नहीं लहराएंगे। ये गंभीर सवाल है। कांग्रेस पार्टी से हम इस जवाब की अपेक्षा करते हैं, और ये हम पूरे देश में सवाल उठाएंगे। दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम मी।
All right, so scathing attack coming from BJP on Congress party, particularly Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi, to explain whether they actually endorse the positions, the slated positions taken by former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Farooq Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti. Well, they want now Congress to respond to this and explain to the people of the country why are they against the restoration of Article 370, and if they have already taken, if the Gupkar declaration has already taken that position, so does it mean that Gupkar declaration delegation stands with the annulment of the developmental policies for the people of Jammu and Kashmir? We're going to talk about the high points of the press conference later in our bulletins, and we'll have to see if Congress responds to that through a presser or a statement. Well, we'll also tell our viewers, in fact, Ravi Shankar Prasad, Union Minister, also has attacked Mehbooba Mufti's Tiranga controversy, and also former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Farooq Abdullah, drawing support from China vis-a-vis the restoration of Article 370, stating that these are anti-national positions taken by National Conference's patron and former Chief Minister Dr. Farooq Abdullah, and also PDP patron Mehbooba Mufti, who's also been the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. We're now going to move on and shift our focus to midday prime, other lead stories of the day. And now let's talk about the government formation in Bihar. Well, Nitish Kumar will be sworn in as the Chief Minister of Bihar for the 7th term today. The swearing-in ceremony will be taking place at around 4:30 p.m. at Raj Bhavan. It will also be attended by Home Minister Amit Shah, BJP National President JP Nadda, among other bigwigs of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Nitish Kumar, remember, was unanimously elected leader of the NDA at a meeting of its newly elected MLAs in Patna yesterday. Later, Nitish Kumar and Bihar BJP President Sanjay Jaiswal, among others, met Governor Phagu Chauhan to stake claim to form the new government in the state. The governor was handed over the letter of support from all 4 NDA constituents of the BJP, JDU, Hindustani Awam Morcha and Vikashsheel Insan Party. Meanwhile, Nitish Kumar, along with the BJP and JDU leaders, also held parleys and meetings discussing the probable size of the cabinet. The maximum number of ministers in the cabinet permissible in the government is 36, as the size of the Council of Ministers can be only 15% of the total number of seats in the Assembly, which stands at 243. Election of Assembly Speaker and other issues are also being discussed upon among allies of the NDA. The NDA has secured, remember, absolute majority by clinching 125 seats in the recently held Bihar Assembly polls. And let me quickly shift focus and go live across to Shweta Singh, who's going to join us live. from Patna. She's going to join us live from Patna. She's there. Shweta Singh. Shweta, good afternoon. Very clearly, the focus also would now shift to the two probable names that are emerging as far as the Deputy Chief Minister, the plum post of the Deputy Chief Minister is concerned. Some unconfirmed reports that there could be two deputies to Nitish, and also the fair allocation of portfolios to keep the allies happy and satisfied. Shweta.
Yes. Sikal, in fact, you see, definitely Nitish Kumar at 4:30 today, he will be taking oath as Chief Minister of Bihar, 7th time and 4th time straight. Another thing, the Tarkishore Prasad from Katihar, he is he's going to be Deputy CM. Another Renu Devi is the name that's coming up. In fact, she is after Tarkishore Prasad as a BJP leader in the Vidhan Sabha. She is the deputy leader of BJP in Vidhan Sabha. So the name is, it could either be Tarkishore or it could be Renu Devi. And so other 16 ministers that are going to take oath, namely 7 from Jadyu and 7 from BJP. One will be from Vihip and one will be from Hum. Probably from Hum it will be Manjhi's son, Santosh Manjhi, he will be there. And Mukesh Sahni will be taking one of the ministerial posts. Sakal.
Okay, and also all eyes are set upon the swearing-in ceremony that's going to take place post 4 p.m. today, and reports suggesting that Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, and JP Nadda, the National President, are also going to be attending this swearing-in ceremony.
Yes, Sakal. In fact, we expected the squad team to be here. Around 2 we were expecting that Mr. Amit Shah and JP Nadda ji will be here. So, but here confirmed report are not yet that they are here. Definitely they are going to be here, but till now he have not arrived here. Else I could have showed you the shots of Mr. Amit Shah coming to this place.
Okay, Shweta, also RJD is in fact or has perhaps RJD decided to finally give it a miss this time around, and also very quickly to add to that, has Nitish been able to keep the flock together, those 4 important constituents, to keep them happy, the allocation of portfolios in the cabinet?
Actually, you see, when Nitish party, Jadyu had 43 seats, it was expected that there may be some other CM, because BJP had a massive power this time. Janadesh was huge for BJP. But ultimately, BJP stuck to their word, and Nitish is going to be 7th CM of Bihar. And the other portfolios, you see, in fact, BJP have taken one step ahead, giving the main power to Nitish Kumar, and then to keep everybody happy, I think the main stake goes to BJP this time, that they are in an equal stake, saying 7 ministerial posts to BJP and 7 ministerial posts to Jadyu.
Okay.
So more than Nitish Kumar, I would say it's BJP who is being a more uniform in distribution of ministerial posts.
Yes, with the numbers that are backing their side. Thank you very much, Shweta. Thank you very much for joining us live from Patna. Thank you. And now let's move on and move to the other developing stories on Midday Prime. Let's now move on to news on pollution level front, especially in the national capital, Delhi. The air quality in Delhi NCR has improved marginally after yesterday's drizzle or rainfall. The AQI has improved from very poor category to poor category in Delhi NCR. According to the latest estimates updated by the Central Pollution Control Board on its app, Delhi recorded air quality in poor category with an AQI of 273, while NCR AQI of Noida is 287, Greater Noida stands at 278, Gurugram is 295. Meanwhile, in a bit of a relief, air pollution levels are likely to fall as several places in Delhi NCR recorded thunderstorm with light rainfall and moderate winds. Now, according to the Met Department, the rain and thunder is associated with the western disturbance which started impacting the western Himalayas on Saturday. So, Dr. Prashant Bhargav, Member Secretary, Central Pollution Control Board, is joining us to explain to our viewers the AQI levels. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on Midday Prime, Dr. Bhargava. Amidst all these conflicting reports that are also, emerging in certain sections of media, that post-Diwali, the AQI or the quality of the air has actually deteriorated. But if you look at AQI figures, they paint a different picture. How do you explain the AQI levels, and do you think this actually has had a bearing on the cracker ban, or it is directly concerned with the weather condition and western disturbances?
No, there are compounding factors. If you compare Diwali AQI levels from the previous year, this year Diwali was in mid-November, where the meteorology becomes more adverse in comparison to last year when we had Diwali on 27th of October. So meteorology is certainly one factor that has led to deterioration of air quality this year during Diwali. Mixing depth that limits vertical dispersion was lowest in 5 years. Average was about 300, which was more than 500 last time. So meteorology was not on our side as far as pollution dispersion is concerned. Stubble burning contribution also on Diwali day this year was much higher in comparison to previous year. We had more than 30% contribution this time, which was about 20% last year. So we had adverse meteorology. We had stubble contributing to this. And also the local sources, of course, which are important. So all these three put together, including a firecracker bursting, which resulted in higher levels during night hours. That's what the data that Central Board has gathered revealed. So all these factors influence the air quality, which was deteriorated. But in last 2 days, as we mentioned about western disturbance bringing in some rainfall and also moderate winds, in addition to that, there was drastic reduction in active fire counts in last 2 days. Numbers were more than 3,000, 4,000 post Diwali. But last 2 days, they have come down to just few hundreds, 300, and yesterday it was just 100 in the Punjab. So drastic reduction in active fire count has brought down contribution. Coupled with meteorology, we could see substantial improvement and quick improvement in air quality index, which was 450 plus, and now it is 250. So 200-point drop.
Okay, so are you which means that this improvement in the air quality levels is attributed to the cumulative effect of ban on crackers, stubble burning, and weather conditions, cold winter approaching.
Exactly. Sure. Yes.
And comparing it to the previous years, yeah, go ahead, sir, please.
No, please go ahead.
You were also, in fact, giving us a comparative analysis to understand why this has happened. So, having said that, now it's clear post-Diwali, the winter season approaches pretty faster. So, what's the kind of forecast for the next 48 hours or perhaps a week or so? Is it likely going to improve?
No, it will be more or less similar. It will not deteriorate further. That's the forecast. But what is important to understand is, in our fight against pollution, it is the long-term solutions, the policies that have been laid down will provide better air quality in the years to come. Introduction of BS6 fuel and vehicles, tighter norms for power plants. You will have to improve public transport, improve waste management. So unless until we have these long-term measures in place, it will not be reasonable to expect quick relief from air pollution levels. Now, what we have been doing is in the winter, till we have these long-term measures in place, we must try and minimize the polluting activities when weather is not favoring dispersion. So that's what we need to do. People need to contribute, minimize the polluting activities, start work from home. We have learned that from COVID experience.
Okay.
So, these are the measures that we'll have to take during the critical winter period when the air quality gets worsened.
So what are the policy decisions, if you could just give us an idea in terms of long-term planning, in terms of having some sort of deterrence, because transport management is something, there's so much to it. The state government has to pitch in terms of controlling that. What is the plan in place to ensure that there is a substantial and consistent increase or a balance in maintaining AQI levels?
See, long-term policy decisions, as I said, introduction of BS6 fuel and vehicles from April 2020. In next 4 or 5 years, we certainly will have larger fleet on cleaner engine technology, cleaner fuel. Older vehicles will go off the roads. Power plant in next 3-4 years time will move towards better standards, installation of FGDs. That will substantially improve air quality in this region. I'm sure stubble also in next few years to come, we should be able to find some concrete solutions. So these long-term policy interventions, e-mobility, for example. So these long-term policy decisions will provide a dividend in the future. But what we need to do is public transportation is strengthening, and that is to be put on fast track. We'll have to certainly fast track all these actions that are needed. Waste management, for that instance.
Okay.
So Delhi NCR will have to move towards adequate waste management facilities so that less of waste dumping and burning take place.
So on behalf of Central Board of Pollution Control, Dr. Gargawa, would you like to send across the viewers of National Broadcaster some sort of assurance that the coming winter years, although because amidst COVID containment, it's already there in the background. In coming winters, in coming times, Delhiites will heave a sigh of relief. We're going to inhale fresh air.
See, my only request to the viewers is that please try to minimize the polluting activities, minimize private vehicles to the extent possible, work from home. And Central Board has a Sameer app which can be downloaded from the Google Play Store. Please download that and report any polluting activities that you come across in your neighborhood or elsewhere, so that concerned agencies can quickly act upon those polluting activities to bring down AQI levels. So this is my request to all the viewers.
Yes. Dr. Prashant Gargawa, Member Secretary, Central Pollution Control Board, many thanks for joining us on TT News, sir.
Thank you very much.
And now it's time to take a very short break on Midday Prime. We'll be back with more news and updates, more national news, more sports news, more news on COVID front on the other side. Stay with us.
अजी ये तो घर की बात है. जरूरी नहीं कि हर सपना सपना रहे. जरूरी नहीं कि हर दरवाजा राह तके. कुछ खिड़कियां बातें करती हैं तो करने दो. कुछ दीवारें शरारत करती हैं तो करने दो. क्योंकि सपना सच करने का ख्याल जब आया, न जाने कितनी खुशियां बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा लेकर आया. कोई जाने या ना जाने, जानते हैं वो क्या हमारे जज्बात हैं. शायद इसीलिए अजी ये तो घर की बात है.
Thanks for staying with us on Midday Prime. Let's now move on to National Prime segment. Well, first up on National Prime, BJP today hit out at Gupkar alliance in Jammu and Kashmir. Party spokesperson Sambit Patra said the alliance wants exactly what Pakistan and anti-India countries want.
मैं राहुल गांधी जी से और सोनिया गांधी जी से पूछना चाहता हूं, आप आज गुपकर अलायंस में हैं. इस अलायंस में एक पार्टी कह रही है कि हम चीन के साथ मिलकर के आर्टिकल 370 वापस लाएंगे, और वहीं एक और पार्टी है इस गुपकर अलायंस में जहां पर महबूबा मुफ्ती कह रही हैं कि मैं तिरंगा नहीं उठाऊंगी और तिरंगा उठाने नहीं दूंगी. ये गुपकर है या गुप्तचर है? मैं ये सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं. ये जो गुप्तचर अलायंस है, ये गुप्तचर अलायंस क्या चाहती है? ये गुप्तचर अलायंस वही चाहती है जो पाकिस्तान चाहता है। ये गुप्तचर अलायंस वही चाहती है जो हिंदुस्तान के दुश्मन देश चाहते हैं।
BJP spokesperson also questioned Congress party if they stand by these objectionable comments made by the leaders of Gupkar Alliance.
आज मैं एक बात यहां सोनिया गांधी जी से और राहुल गांधी जी से पूछना चाहता हूं। चूंकि आप इस अलायंस में हैं, जो कहा गया एनसी द्वारा कि चीन के साथ मिलकर अनुच्छेद 370 वापस लाएंगे, जो कहा गया पीडीपी द्वारा कि हम तिरंगे को हाथ नहीं लगाएंगे और किसी को हाथ लगाने नहीं देंगे, आप इसके पीछे हैं या नहीं है? आप इनको रिजेक्ट करते हैं या इनको सपोर्ट करते हैं? आप इन वाक्यों के साथ खड़े हैं या इन वाक्यों के विरोध में खड़े हैं?
In other news, BSF IG Kashmir Ranger Rajesh Mishra has said that around 250 to 300 terrorists are active across the border at each launching pad in Pakistan. He stressed that security forces have been very successful in thwarting their attempts of infiltration.
250-300 के लगभग हर एक लॉन्चिंग पैड में वो एकत्रित रहे हैं और हर संभव प्रयास करते हैं कि वो देश के अंदर घुसपैठ करें और यहाँ की आंतरिक सुरक्षा को ठेस पहुँचाएं। लेकिन सेना और सीमा सुरक्षा बल इस चीज़ को नाकाम करने में काफ़ी कामयाब रही है। उसी के उदाहरण पूर्व में भी रहे हैं और अभी भी वैसे ही हो रहा है।
Shifting focus to Maharashtra, the religious places of worship have reopened in Maharashtra from today with the mandatory coronavirus safety measures such as masks, sanitizers and temperatures checks put in place. Maharashtra government has urged citizens to follow social distancing and COVID-19 protocols while entering religious places. And as part of the standard operating procedures or SOPs, the governing bodies of the religious places are looking after crowd management and people above 65, children below 10, pregnant women have been advised to stay at home. Religious places were closed in Maharashtra and most other states since March since the outbreak of pandemic. Okay, as we stay with these visuals, Shama, my colleague, is joining us live from Mumbai. Give us a quick update because we see that the checks are in place, the advisories, very strict advisories are in place, but the implementation of it is going to be, do you think, a big challenge, especially the crowd management where in Mumbai, Shama, because Mumbai being one of the worst infected in terms of numbers also from the pandemic?
Well, definitely. For now, all these temples, all religious places have now come out with a system, who have now come out with new normal. All the procedures that they are taking care of, people are really following, the devotees are following that. But till what time, till what extent they would be following, because today the number of devotees are less because less people have gone out to take darshan, to go into the dargah and the churches. But in few days, the number of devotees will definitely rise, and how the management would take care then would be a task or would be a challenge, anything that would be for us to see. But for now, we can say that all these temples that have reopened from today, they've already done their sanitization work yesterday, and most of the temples, which are the big temples, including the Siddhi Vinayak, Shri Sai Baba Shirdi Temple, Dagadu Halwai, these temples have come out with a system of QR code or token. You have to apply beforehand, before you enter the temple, maybe in advance, 1 or 2 days in advance. And then you get the QR code or the token, and then you can enter into the temple. This is to avoid crowding. Also, you cannot enter the Sanctum Sanctorum. That is totally prohibited for now. That is not allowed. Even in the churches, when the devotees go and touch the feet of Lord Jesus or Mother Mary, that is not allowed. Even sprinkling the holy water sprinkler, that is also not allowed. The prasad or even from the churches or even from the dargahs, those food would not be allowed for now, because we know for a fact that that could lead to spread of COVID virus. Apart from this, people have to wear face masks. That is mandatory on the entrance of each religious places. There would be a sanitization stand, sanitizer stand, thermal checkups would be done. Apart from that, people also have to keep in mind that they are going to seek the blessings of Lord, and they also have to take care of all the necessary precautions, of all the cautions that definitely will help taking these numbers, which are already in control in Maharashtra, to that extent or even lower than that. suffer.
Yes, and it's definitely prime responsibility of the civil society to adhere to these COVID protocols for the good of society in large. Many thanks, Shama, for joining us with a quick update. And now from Maharashtra, let's shift our focus to Sabrimala also, where Sabrimala Lord Ayyappa Temple also opened yesterday for this year's Mandala pilgrimage season. The main priest opened the door of the Sanctum Sanctorum and performed puja and rituals to the deity. Devotees are being allowed to enter the shrine complex from today. Due to prevailing COVID protocols, entry is allowed for those devotees who have booked for darshan via virtual queue. COVID-19 certificate is mandatory for all pilgrims. Every devotee should carry a COVID-19 negative certificate taken within the last 24 hours, and those who do not carry COVID negative certificate will have to undergo COVID test at Nilakkal. That's one of the important base camps there. Pilgrims who tested positive for COVID will be shifted to CFLTC at Ranni. Quickly getting you some news from Jharkhand as well. The Jharkhand government has banned Chhat Puja in public water bodies due to COVID-19 pandemic, and the state government says in an order that Chhat Puja in water bodies including public ponds, lakes, rivers, dams, reservoirs will not be permitted in view of COVID-19 pandemic. These are the high points of that. Now the state government in an order added that since it is not possible to ensure the compliance of the National Directive of Social Distancing norms of 2 gaz ki duri while performing Chhat Puja in the water bodies. Therefore, Chhat Puja in the water bodies shall not be permitted so as to minimize the chances of spreading of COVID-19 infection. Also, the Jharkhand government has banned organization of any musical or any other entertainment or cultural program for that matter during the Chhat Puja celebrations. Meanwhile, Delhi government has already banned community celebrations of Chhat Puja at ghats, rivers, banks, temples and other public places as a precautionary measure to curb the spread of coronavirus. And now moving on to Himachal Pradesh news. In Himachal Pradesh, 7 people were killed while 1 was injured after a vehicle fell down in Suketi Khad water stream near Fulgharat area of Mandi district at around 3 a.m. today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also expressed condolences over the deaths in Mandi road accident. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "News of a road accident in Himachal Pradesh's Mandi has caused immense grief. Government is involved in relief and rescue operations. I express my deepest condolences to the families of the dead and pray for speedy recovery of the injured," quote unquote. Well, National Press Day is being observed across the country today. This day commemorates establishment of the Press Council of India, which was formed in 1966. National Press Day is a symbol of a free and responsible press in India, as Press Council of India acts as a moral watchdog for media. It also makes sure that the institution of the press should not be controlled by the influence or threats of any extraneous factors. India in the Constitution provides the right to freedom of speech and expression. However, freedom of the press is not specifically mentioned in Article 19A of the Constitution. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu extended greeting to the media professionals on the occasion of National Press Day, and he said in India, press always strengthens the foundations of democracy. Robust, free and vibrant media is as important as an independent judiciary.
Greetings to all the media friends on the occasion of National Press Day. The press in India has always been in the vanguard of protecting and strengthening the foundations of democracy. A robust, free and vibrant media is as important as an independent judiciary in consolidating democracy and strengthening constitutional rule of law.
Addressing a webinar on National Press Day organized by Press Council of India, Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar has said that press freedom is the soul of democracy.
कि आज़ादी लोकतंत्र का आत्मा है और ये मेरे मन पे बहुत गहराई से लिखा गया है, क्योंकि मैं 25 जून 1975 को कभी भूल नहीं सकता। प्रेस की आजादी अनिर्बंध नहीं होती, ये जिम्मेवार आजादी है, रिस्पॉन्सिबल फ्रीडम। और कोई भी आजादी ये उसके अंगभूत बंधनों के साथ आती है कि एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल जर्नलिज्म करना है, सेंसेशनलाइजेशन नहीं करना है, लेकिन अपनी बात रखने की आजादी।
Well, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan is chairing a meeting of the World Health Organization Executive Board. He's speaking on the occasion. Let's go live.
Representatives, DG WHO, Regional Director of WHO Southeast Asia, Regional Directors of other regions, Heads and representatives of UN agencies, partner organizations, brothers, sisters, and healthcare workers around the world. Today we have once again joined virtually for the resumed 147th session of the WHO Executive Board. I welcome you all today amidst what we all know are unprecedented times. And yet, I would say that 2020 has been the year of collaborative action. Mankind was already fighting overwhelming challenges: poverty, hunger, inequality, climate change, pollution, violence, war, disease, and now the pandemic, which has shaken us to the core. But we came together as the nations of the world because we chose not to be overwhelmed. We choose optimism and struggle to achieve. We choose a better future. There is no better future without health for all. A lesson we knew and a lesson that we have now relearned. In India, we bless each other as Ayushman Bhava, which means may you have a long and healthy life. That itself is the essence of life and existence. That itself is the essence of our organization, the World Health Organization, which binds us all together, and which is why we are all here today together. All the member states of WHO share the same philosophy: health above all. Each member nation here will agree with me that in the gravest of situations, humankind has conquered its adversaries with collaborations and supplementing efforts of each other by pooling resources. We at WHO believe in the principle that the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being, without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic or social condition. We therefore commit to work with the member states, the organization, and the global community of partners for the efficient, effective, and responsive discharge of public health obligations. The pandemic has made humanity acutely aware of the consequences of ignoring health systems strengthening and preparedness. In such times of global crisis, risk management and mitigation both would require further strengthening of global partnerships to reinvigorate interest and investment in global public health. I am sure that our constant engagement with each member state, their interface with each other, as well as all stakeholders will reinforce reforms and help accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals and universal health coverage with the most productive, efficient, and targeted utilization of resources. As I happen to be the Health Minister of India, I would like to mention here that the Southeast Asia region and India are continuously striving to improve health services, their reach, delivery, and quality. We have seen successes in all the regional flagship priority areas through collaborative action. We will continue to contribute to regional and global public health issues through advocacy, technical collaboration, research, innovations, digital health and partnerships aimed at improving the accessibility and affordability of health services and high quality essential medicines and products. Excellencies, this pandemic has claimed more than 1,300,000 precious lives, infected millions and snatched away the livelihoods of billions. My heartfelt condolences to those families across the world who have lost their near and dear ones to this deadly disease. I also take this opportunity to salute our doctors and health workers who had been working relentlessly in rendering selfless service to fight this deadly disease. And I urge all of you to please join me in giving them a big hand. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, in the last over 10 months of this pandemic, I have observed that the World Health Organization, with a mandate to be the lead agency for health, has done a commendable job of working along with member states from the very beginning to provide required technical assistance to support the continuation of essential healthcare service delivery. WHO and its member states across the globe are committed to harnessing this opportunity to build back health systems that are more resilient and which can meet everyone's health needs. We are already identifying and acting on the lessons learned from the current crisis so that together we can achieve more robust and resilient health systems that can promote a sustained economic recovery and a healthier future for people across the world. Let me mention that from the beginning of the outbreak, all member states have acted with speed, scale, and solidarity to control and suppress the spread of COVID-19 and empower individuals and communities to stay safe, healthy, and well. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time that we must enhance our cooperation and collaboration. We must work in unison with each other as member states, with all UN organizations, as well as the global community of partners, for efficient, effective, and responsive discharge of public health obligations. Excellencies, today for the current session, we have an elaborate agenda to cover, which includes outcome of the recently concluded resumed session of the 73rd World Health Assembly and the report of the Program, Budget and Administration Committee of the Executive Board, along with few managerial, administrative, financial, and staffing matters of the organization.
Those were the live visuals of Union Health Minister's intervention at the WHO Executive Body meet, where he not only talked about the collaborative response of the WHO body, but also India's spirited, concerted response to fight pandemic, which helped India as a nation to stay ahead of the curve. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Midday Prime, but with a polite reminder: frequent hand washing, social distancing, and masking is extremely important. But before we actually wrap it up, we have a very good news coming in from Live Prime segment. Let's talk about it. Now it's time to move on to the Live Prime segment. Let's see what we have next in Live Prime segment for you. And this is one story that has caught nation's attention. A 5-year-old boy, Nawang Namgyal, once again becoming on social media with his energy and inspiring actions, taking social media by storm. Nawang is a lower kindergarten student in one of the border villages in Ladakh's Chushul area. He became an internet sensation in October after the ITBP shared a video of him saluting jawans to command. ITBP have now honored him with a custom-made uniform that he's wearing in that video and filmed him doing drill at the camp. There's an old video and this is a new video. The video is shared by the ITBP with the title, and I quote, "Happy and inspiring again," unquote. This is also winning hearts on the social media. Just like his last video shared on 11th of October, this clip of Namgyal saluting and marching has also won hearts. In fact, Twitter users showered their admiration, their love for this child prodigy with salutes and admiration and comments.
सावधान हाँ तेज चल हाँ थम विश्राम हाँ सावधान सल्यूट विश्राम.
And as Namgyal salutes the soldiers on frontiers, we also salute his indomitable spirit. And on that note, masking up is important with a polite reminder. Thanks for staying with Midday Prime, and don't forget to wear your mask.